Kia ora, everyone. It's Nathan Rose here in beautiful Auckland, New Zealand. I am joined by James Williams in the UK. Good morning, James. How you going?
Good morning. Yeah, good, thanks. Great. How are you?
Yeah, doing well, doing well. So James and I connected on GitHub earlier this week. I had submitted an issue that I was having in Power Effects, and James came to the rescue and solved my problem. And then he went and iterated and created something really epic. So that is the power of community. Hashtag community rocks. One of the reasons that I absolutely love Power Effects and the Microsoft community. But James helped me solve the September issue that I raised earlier this week, where for some reason, when I generated a dynamic table of dates in the month of September, it cut one off and I only got 1 to 29 September. And James worked out that that's when daylight savings kicks in. And by applying an offset, that fixes it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And James, if you want to talk us through these updates that we've made to the plugin. So this is the updates to my original plugin, and
Yeah.
this is James's code snippet here, starting at sequence.
Yeah. So the only thing we really added in was the bit value time zone offset onwards, and that is doing an adjustment by adding that missing day back in, just for any date range it finds that crosses that start of daylight savings.
Yeah,
Because the problem with that is in losing an hour, because the clocks are jumping forward, you're actually getting most of the final day or that day in the
yeah,
period, but not quite all of it. So date
yeah,
diff, the way that works, it seems, is it truncates that back down to. So if you're expecting 30 days for September, it's truncating that down to 29 because it's only
yep,
getting, say, 29.96 of that day because
yeah,
you've lost that hour somewhere. So
yeah,
the check there, the time zone offset, what that does is it compares. So the way time zone offset works is it takes the time where you are, and it
yeah.
tells you the difference between that and UTC.
Okay.
And because yours is changing depending on whether you're in daylight savings or not, and UTC isn't changing, there will be a difference there where
Yep.
you've crossed the boundary, if you like. So this says where that time zone offset is greater, and it'll be by an hour,
Yep.
than the time zone offset for the end date. That's the trigger for adding that extra day in.
Yep.
So that's just a Boolean. Is it greater than the other? And if yes, it's true or false. And adding value around it just means that's going to be a 1 or a 0. So the 1 we get added on to the number of items that are going to be in our sequence,
Yep.
where we need it, and not otherwise. So you've got the date diff to start with, the number of days between the start and the end date, +1 to include the end date, as you already mentioned,
Yep.
but then adding that extra day where we need it because of the time zone difference.
I love it. I love it. In a million years, I never would have come up with that. So that is brilliant. Let's give this bad boy a try and see how we go. So let's go here to the new API playground that the team released a few weeks ago. I absolutely love this new test feature. It is very slick. And let's choose our plugin, and let's run this for New Zealand in the month of September. 4 and 30/09/2024. All right, let's run this. And we get 20 working days. So there is actually a public holiday that comes back in September. It's one of the regional ones here in New Zealand, so that's why we got 20 instead of 21. But yeah, solved our issue of the dates not quite lining up. Let's try it real quick for August, because that's a month where we don't have any public holidays here in New Zealand, because it's winter and cold and rainy and generally unpleasant.
It is here too, despite it being our summer, but there you go.
Yeah, and we get 22 working days for August, which is accurate. So that is awesome, James. Thank you. This had me absolutely pulling my hair out, mate. I was losing my mind over why it was chopping off days and yeah,
Well, at
so
least you
this is
spotted it.
epic.
Would have been far worse to not notice that and just kind of release it out into the wild.
Yeah, but then you took things a step farther because I've got two kind of I guess fundamental issues with my design, right? Because firstly, we assume that we're working across 1 year, which is great, except if we want to do, say, the Christmas holiday period, which is going to span 2024 into 2025, which means this is going to be inaccurate. And the second thing is that this doesn't account for regional holidays. So it basically says if you found a holiday, assume it's a holiday and deduct it from the working days total. But you figured out how to solve that. So yeah, do you wanna go ahead and share your screen with us and take us through your update of the plugin?
Yeah, we'll do. So that's kind of behind the scenes view. So this is the updated instant plugin.
Yep.
So I've got a few different variable names, so sorry about that for confusing
No,
people.
no stress, man.
But so the first bit I did, same as yours, I've got you had var range. This is all the dates in the period.
Yep.
So I've got that same pattern there where we get the sequence of the number of dates in the period with the time zone offset.
Yep.
And we generate a table of every single one of those dates. And the
Yep.
second thing I did was the same pattern, but for years instead. So by changing the time unit to years,
Yep.
instead of every day in the period, I get every year in the period. We still need that +1
Yep.
because of the way date diff works, but we don't need the time zone offset
Yep.
in this, it seems. So that's not there. So rather than doing date add start value, start date plus the value to get each date, the output of this is the year of the start date plus that value gives us then a table of every year in the period. So all I've done is
sorry
wrapped.
to interrupt,
That's
James.
fine.
So if we ran this for say 31 December 2024 to 1 January 2025, our all dates is going to be 31 December and 1 January, and our year is going to have 2024 and 2025 in it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So that just 2 rows in a table then. But that's the 2 years we need because obviously your one of your parameters what year it was up here. I've got rid of that because now that's being dynamically generated.
I like
and
it.
that API just accepts 1 year at a time. So
Yep.
in this for all, so we've got a sequence of every year. And then for each of those, I'm running the API. So I'm running it for that year with this inner, click on that for some reason, this inner expression. So that's the year, so 2024, 2025. I've got my country code as the second parameter. So this gives me back a table of tables, and each of those tables is a set of results. So that's easy to visualize back in Power App Studio. So I've got the same setup here. If I click on, which one was it in the end? So this button, well, this is the same as the instant plugin I was just showing you there. I've done a little bit of setup around it to kind of emulate the input and output parameters. So these are my input parameters hard coded in here in Power Apps for testing. I've used update context because then that gives me this same record style of format to do the output. So working days is the output. So if I just copy this part of the expression, that allows me to just put that into instant plugins and see if it works. So here, I'll go on to explain what happens, but the holidays by year part, if I just use this button here to extract that, in fact, let me do, got it part way between 2 countries here. So we said Auckland, there's a county code, I'll come on to why, but if I click that button now, in my test holidays by year context variable, I should have which is showing up here on the left now in the variables pane. I should have those table of tables. So there's 2 results, which is what we're expecting. Nice. This should be the holidays for 2024. This should be the holidays for 2025. So if I go into the first one, here's that set of results for 2024.
There we go.
I noticed a few things here. So when I started to test it, I was getting all sorts of results that were
Yeah.
wrong, like you noticed, because it's pulling all sorts, multiple days of the same thing through. Hard to see on yours, mine, but on the UK, there were like 3 New Year's days because
Yep.
each separate country was being treated differently.
All
So
right.
I noticed,
England, Scotland, Wales.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, so I noticed two things. One, there's this global column. Um, it's got a true if it applies to everyone. There's no counties in that case,
Yep.
and a false otherwise. So in the case of false, you can see where it applies to these regional holidays by
Yep.
a second code that appears in this subtable. So for you, it'd be the Auckland code here. So bear that in mind for a moment. But the
Yep.
real issue I had then was how do I deal with there being a table of tables?
Yep.
How do I then check whether all my dates in the date range were one of the dates within this period, let alone whether I could filter it for dates that apply to me, holidays that
Yep.
apply to me. So in Power Apps, it wasn't such a challenge initially. The way I did it uh, was kind of like this. So I ungrouped those results,
Yep. Yep.
which takes the value column and just produces one big table based on all those
Yeah.
subtables. And when I first tried to copy this into instant plugins, the first error that popped up was ungroup isn't available.
Yeah.
That's not an available function yet
Yep.
in instant plugins. So that was a shame. So the trickiest bit I found then was figuring out how to solve that. Um, so the way I did it in the end was using sum. So the next part, so these are the first kind of two working variables, if you like. I've got my range of
Yep.
dates, I've got my
Yep.
range of holidays, the table of
Yep.
tables.
Yep.
So the first thing I did next was calculate the weekdays in the period. So this was a
Yep.
similar approach to yours. I've used some here. I could
Yep.
have used countive or count rows, but because I had ended up having to use some further down, I've kept it in
Yep.
the same format. So I've got some that's looking at every row in my all dates, which is every
Yep.
date in the range. And for each one, it's using the weekday function with the start of week as Monday. So that's
Yep.
one for Monday up
Yep.
to seven Sunday. Is that less than six? Because if it is, it's Monday to Friday.
Yep.
Um, so that gives me the count of all weekdays in my
Nice. I
all
like it.
dates range.
Yeah.
And then the second bit was the trickier bit. So holidays in period. So that's how many public holidays are in my whole all dates period. So the
Yep.
way I've done that, first I've done a sum running over the table holidays by year. So again, that's
Yep.
only those two rows. Each is a whole table in its own right. So then what expression is it running on each of those tables? It's doing another sum. So
Nice.
the first bit is some value. So here value is that whole table for
Yep.
2024, say,
Yep.
of holiday results. And
Yep.
then for that table, it's doing this check. And this is
Yep.
giving back the number that it's then going to sum. So the first uh, check, if you like, is it one of those global
Yep.
holidays? If it is, it's definitely a holiday that applies to my area, so I'll include
Yep.
that. Then we've got the two pipes for an or.
Yep.
The second check is if it's not global, is the
Yep.
county code that I've put in my input parameters in that
Yep.
list of counties. So if one of those is true, that's a public holiday for my area in general.
Yep.
So then uh, the next check is if that's true, I also want it to be the case that the date um, from that row in the holiday table, so this date, is that in my all dates range, or is
Yep.
that one of the days I'm actually looking at the moment? So to do that, I've done date value of the date, so that's that date string in the middle. This gives me the
Yep.
date object for that date. So is that date in my all dates table, which is
Yep.
the one I've produced up here? So if all those things are true, that's a holiday in my period.
Yep.
So the last thing that the formula does is take the weekdays in the period and subtract from that the number of holidays in the period, which in my case for September, I can run that and see what happens.
Yeah.
Uh, and I'll refresh here. So apparently that's 21 here. And I think you said yours was 20 because you get an extra holiday
There's
thrown
a
in there, but this is
yeah,
the
there's a
this is the England ones. We're not so
yeah,
lucky. September.
yeah. James, I love it. There's two things I love about this. So firstly, you've written just really elegant power effects code. It's just beautiful because it's just yeah, the elegance is just in the simplicity of it. But secondly, in the where you take the year and you create a table of years and then call that API, you have figured out something that I have been pulling my hair out trying to figure out, which is how do you loop in low code plugins? And you have figured that out. That is something that I was convinced that I wasn't sure you could do, and you have worked it out. That is absolutely brilliant, man. I love it. So
Thanks.
yeah, this is a very cool solution. I like it.
Yeah, well, you can loop if you've got tables of tables. You can loop as long as all you want to do, it seems, is get a number out of it.
Yeah.
If you want to do anything more clever, I couldn't figure out a way around that either without that ungroup. So
Yep.
hopefully that ungroup will come in one day, and then we'll just have a whole table to to look at. But yeah,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah.
Do you want to show it in action on the Dataverse Accelerator?
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see this
Just
thing
to
in
kind of
action.
prove it.
Yeah.
So this is that inner bit of code. So from ignoring all my kind of setup and
Yep.
dummy parameters there, this is this bit of code. The only changes here in the Power Apps Studio, that's the way you reference the connector, but
Yep.
in the instant plugin, having created a connection following a video, up in connections up here, I just had to change the name to, in my case, new.
Yep. Yep.
The default publisher name, Worldwide Bank Holidays, I called it. So then everything else in this whole block is exactly the same. And all I had to
Nice.
do was put the input parameters up here, name my output parameter to match, and that's that. So there's the whole plugin saved exactly as is in the Power Up Studio. So here's the playground. Here's a test actually we just ran earlier on those Christmas weeks for
Yep.
New Zealand, for Auckland specifically.
Yeah.
So I quite like this range because it does span the 2 years. There's
Yep.
only a week on each side,
Yep.
so it's easy to visualize that there's supposed to be 10
Yep.
weekdays,
Yep.
but there's a lot of holidays baked
We
in,
get a
certainly
lot
for
of
New
them. We
Zealand.
get a lot of them in December and January in New Zealand. Coincidentally, that's when the weather is gorgeous here. So yeah, we'll
Yeah,
take it. But
best of both
yeah.
worlds there. Fantastic. Very jealous.
Yeah.
So yeah, so we've got 10 weekdays. You've got 4 public holidays in that period. We've got 3. So
Yep.
the output here for New Zealand, for Auckland, is 6, which I think is right. Do
Yeah.
you want
Correct.
to
Yeah.
do the
Let's
test
switch it
to
to the
prove the
UK.
September one?
And oh yeah, yeah. Let's do the September one and
Hopefully to
see
prove
this
we
in
haven't
action.
broken anything in the in
Yeah.
doing all this. So if I do 2024 901, 2024 0930.
Cross our fingers and toes.
Yeah.
We should see 21.
Mm. Which it timed out now. Oh, here we go.
Nice. Nice. Very cool. Very, very cool. Yeah, so that is how you take this concept and make it productionable. I'm not sure if that's a word, but this is the version you take to prod.
Yeah.
So
Hopefully,
yeah,
we've done a little bit of testing. Hopefully, that's enough testing. Like I say, you were lucky enough to find that it was wrong for September. And had you not checked that, we might
yeah,
have missed a whole day every time we're crossing that boundary for daylight saving. So yeah, hopefully
yeah.
this is the final version, but
Yeah,
you never know.
very cool. Very cool. Oh, James, thanks
Thanks.
so much for taking the time. Thanks for yeah, sending through those epic code snippets and getting me on the right path to fixing the issues I was having and then iterating and coming up with some really cool solutions around multi-year and iterating within and looping within a plugin, which is really, really cool. So yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for taking the time. And yeah,
You're
it's
very
been
welcome.
awesome going through this with you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And like I said, you've solved a lot more things for me in introducing me to low code plugins than I've solved in finding this one answer or these 2 answers for you. So yeah, thanks to you as well.
Pleasure. It's the beauty of community, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Cool. All right, James, have a good morning.
You too. Cheers.
Yep. Bye.
Bye now. Thanks a lot.